Hey, what's up, everybody? Time for another game theory video. Remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly comment, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks, Super Chat, PayPal, Patreon, whatever. If you want to buy me a tiramisu for my trip coming up, support the channel, and I will maybe think about you while eating it. Maybe. So, what's old is new again. I got asked about this when I made that, again, recent video about how I would change Street Fighter, about EX moves, and I also got this message about Alpha 1, what I thought about if Alpha Counter should be a different versatile meter, whatever, blah, blah. So I just want, once again, talk about why EX moves suck. EX moves are just terrible for games, okay? The only thing that EX moves do in terms of actually progressing games, if we're thinking about how normally EX moves are done, not like a, say, Guilty Gear Force Break EX move where they're actually sort of individualized, right? If we're thinking about just EX Fireball, EX Dragon Punch, every special move has an EX variant of it. The only positive, objective thing about it is that every game has to be different, right? There is a mental stack, you could say, as well to it, give or take. How much is up to debate. But the only actual objective thing that has made fighting games, you could say, better when they came in is that every game has to be different and every game has to have their gimmick, let's say, right? So from that certain standpoint, I don't hate that EX moves could be a one-off or something like that. Oh, Street Fighter 3 had EX moves, yeah. Oh, Street Fighter 4 had EX moves. Oh, Street Fighter 5 had EX. Oh, But you know what? When every game has EX moves, we have already seen that EX moves are not good for games. They're not good for the health of games in a grand sort of perspective, right? And we're going to go through some examples just showing why EX moves are so bad while looking at some of these things.
Oh, Jesus, Bob, what is that?
What, Pikachu?
Are those boobies?
Yes.
What do they have to do with EX moves?
Nothing.
Oh, Jesus, Bob. Just when I thought you were being normal. Oh, God, just please don't draw pee-pee.
No promises, Pikachu. I got to work on the voices. One day I will do an FGC on NBC video again, but today is not that day, but I know some people like the voices. So let's look at some examples of why EX moves suck, and many examples that I've talked about before. Let's say we got a dude like Ryu. He is throwing his super fireball, and his super fireball, something that is unique to him, it beats other characters' fireballs, right? And what does that mean? Because Ryu has a super that goes through a regular fireball, that gives Ryu something unique. Let's say from that perspective, we could say that Ryu wins the fireball war. That is now something unique to his character, right? Is that correct? No other character, if we're thinking about super, has a move that beats fireballs. Yes, some supers can go through fireballs, yes. But in terms of, just straight up Ryu wins the fireball war, guess what? That is something that is unique to Ryu. Now, when you add something like having a EX fireball, whatever it is, yeah, little dude, now he's doing an EX fireball. Hadouken. Maybe it's an EX sonic boom. Ooh, sonic boom. That's my sonic boom. Oh, it's an EX tiger. He's the EX tiger, blah, 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 right? Guess what? Now, every character can win the fireball war. That automatically makes the game less interesting. It automatically homogenizes the game, does it not? Objectively, it homogenizes the game and it starts to make it less unique. Let's look at something. Let's take a Dragon Punch. Obviously, I love my Dragon Punches, right? Dragon Punch, right? Invincible, if we're thinking about old school Street Fighter 2, right? But guess what? Once we get into these newer school games, guess what? To actually have my move have the original properties of the move where it is invincible, I now have to use meter. Now, again, objectively, I've said that every game does have to be different. You could objectively, depending on how much weight you think this weighs in on the conversation, I guess you could say. You could say that it is a form of meter management, right? I will objectively say that is possible. And that's why I say, objectively speaking, I am not against the idea that EX moves are a one-off, because every game has to have something different, has to have a gimmick. But for every game to do this, you're telling me every game now, something that made a character like Ryu unique. Ryu has a dragon punch that is invincible. It is a unique characteristic to him, right? Well, guess what? Now I need to use meter to have my original property. And how often have we seen now when we get to games where a lot of these characters' tool sets even, they start to sort of become different shades of gray. These character archetypes aren't as strongly set in stone, right? As I've showed in many videos before, right? Characters start even poking the same way, right? Not every character, and before, and again, I've said before, in old school Street Fighter, you think that not every character could even hit you ducking while you were poking, right? Even poking was something inherently unique to the character, right? Now all characters seem to poke the same way. Well, guess what? Now if we're thinking about, guess what? We have a character that many characters have dragon punches now, let's just say many characters have that special move that is invincible at some sort of way, right? Well, guess what? That means that now these other characters too, that maybe had specific dragon punches, let's say, guess what? Well, you're just going to say that they have, well, since I got to use meter, you might as well just say it's a totally invincible dragon punch, right? You could say an example might be, I could have used a picture of before. If you take a game like, say, Alpha 1 with Guy's Hurricane Kick, right? Guy's Alpha 1 Hurricane Kick, and I've made many videos about it, right? At a lower level, Guy's Hurricane Kick seems like a extremely broken move. But if you actually know the properties and you think about the balance and the chaos of a lot of these old school games, you would see that, yeah, the move has a humongous hitbox, right? But you would notice that none of the hurricane kicks are actually totally invincible. They'll have like, oh, well, he's actually got a little, you can't hit him anywhere there, but he's got a little spot there. So that meant that when you're playing some of these old school games, and I've showed this before, right? Well, guess what? There's characters that if they have a high priority, I'm going to say priority, I know that makes people mad. If they have a high priority normal that has a huge hitbox, the hitbox will encompass, let's say, or inherently, inevitably, hit a part of Guy's body that is not actually invincible. So the hurricane kick at a lower level seems broken, but once you know the tools of your character, you start to get into that balance and the chaos of old school games, and you're like, oh, well, this move isn't actually 100% invincible. But of course, back then we still have a dragon punch that is, let's say, invincible for so many frames. Alpha 1, it wasn't, it was only invincible for so long, but it was more so inherently the entire thing is invincible, let's say, with no blue for a while, right? So that meant that, you can see the difference in how these moves. But if we were to apply this knowledge to, say, like a Street Fighter 4 or something like that, or if this was a new school, if we were to apply this sort of, idea of how fighting games work to a new school game, we would just say, fuck all this stuff. Fuck all this stuff. This is too complicated. Just make Guy's Hurricane Kick completely invincible if you do an EX move. So you're taking some of the nuance out of it as well, right? Also, let's say that we get into, what is another thing that EX moves do? How often do we see EX moves when you're like, fuck, what should the EX move do that makes it, unique? Let's make it juggle. This thing can juggle. Wow, big brain. Oh my God, it juggles. Fuck, what are we going to do for this EX move to make it more unique? What do we give it a property? We could make it juggle. Oh God, Jesus Christ. Wow, big brain. It juggles. Oh, it juggles. Amazing. Whoa. Right? Not exactly the most big brain thing, dude. Wow, your EX move, it juggles now. Wow, amazing. Wow, amazing. Wow, amazing. How many times do I have to say it? What's another problem of EX moves? Excuse me, let me take a drink of water. What's another problem of EX moves when you think about it? And this also talks about, again, we could talk about maybe the real first Street Fighter game, Alpha 2, because it's so easy to talk shit about. The first Street Fighter 2 game, or Alpha 2, let's say Street Fighter game, where it really was your meter versus your meter, or your meter versus the opponent's meter, and vice versa. Right. And we get to talk about how versatile some of these EX moves are for the actual meter usage that it uses. Right. Let's say, and I've talked about something like this for it's a good thing for Guilty Gear too. Let's say that we got a super, right? The super takes the full bar for sake of argument again. Super takes the full bar, takes all of this, right? And your super might only have one usage. We go back to, say, Super Turbo, and I use the example of Ryu's Super Fireball. Not the most damaging super in the game, whatever it might be, but it is a super that, wins Fireball Wars. Also safe on block, whatever. Of course, there's other nuances to it, but it's something that's unique to him. If we're to get into a game like Alpha 1, supers are unique, right? Some supers are better for certain situations. Some supers are worse for other situations. This is what, happens when characters are not homogenized and they kind of find a way like Jurassic Park to make it work, right? Well, what happens even in a game, if we use a game like Alpha 2, right? Well, we have this, our bar, but we don't have to use, a level 3. Let's say if it was Alpha 3, this full bar to do a level 3 super. Because guess what? We can use little baby parts of the bar for something like custom combos. And custom combos are so versatile and can be applied to every situation. Quotation marks, every situation, right? Whereas my super might be only applicable to a certain situation, say a Super Fireball. This is where this is good. Custom combos are always the best thing to do. Quotation marks, always the best thing to do, right? They're always the most damaging thing. They're an anti-air. They're anti-poke. They're unblockable if you weren't blocking beforehand, right? They're the most damaging thing. Even if they were blocked, they do more block damage than the other thing. And it's something that every character uses. It's a homogenization of the game. It's no longer unique. And it uses less meter, you could say, from a certain perspective, right? Which on that subject, I talk about something like Guilty Gear, when I was talking about how it would change Street Fighter and why it's important to have different bars, tied to different things. Differentiating a super from an EX meter, I should say. Excuse me. Right? If it takes all my bar to do a super in Guilty Gear, that one of the gimmicks of it is if the guy bursts, right? That is a unique thing of Guilty Gear. And if you do a super, if the guy bursts, right, you can't burst the super. But this even this has a stipulation. It's cool. Don't get me wrong. I do enjoy that, but generally speaking, you don't see supers in Guilty Gear a lot. Why not? Because it takes so much bar. There's all these different things that you could be using your meter for. Oh, a little bit of here, a little bit of here, a little bit of here. Maybe it's RC, maybe it's FRC. Oh, little baby FDs here and there. Maybe it's a slashback, whatever. When you have all these versatile usages of a meter that you can use in different ways, if it was, say, Street Fighter 5, Street Fighter 4, whatever it might be, where you have EX meter. Do you want to save your super, or you got 4 EX bars that you could use? And we see, well, God, I got to use, for me to even have my original use of the Dragon Punch, I have to use meter, right? EX moves are so effective and so versatile. This meter can be used in such versatile ways, and your super often only has one real use, right? So it's hard to keep supers feeling special when all these little ways that you can use your meter are so effective and so versatile, right? And then that also homogenizes the game, since every character, quotation marks, every character has the same ways that they can use their meter in a versatile way. Okay? That's why, what is one of the things I said about Street Fighter 6? Right when Street Fighter 6 was being made, and it's something that I've said for years I would do if I was making a Street Fighter game, right? They did the top and bottom system, right?
Are you making a sex joke, Bob? No, I'm just saying, Pikachu. All right.
keeping versatile usages of the meter different from super. But what did I say? I was afraid of Street Fighter 6 because I just don't trust Capcom and the people making the games. I was like, I like that they are keeping the versatile ways to use your meter separate from supers, because supers don't feel special enough. But I was worried. I was like, God, I hope that supers are not just generally combo fodder. I hope that supers are inherently unique to characters. And guess what? My fear was proven right. Okay, now someone's gonna say, oh, what about JP super or Blanca's super, you know what I mean, or Guile's super? These are exceptions to the rule, okay? But generally speaking, as I feared, when you see a super, it's just to end a combo, right? Oh, it's my combo ender. The visual aesthetic of it, you know, they almost all do the same damage. Isn't that true? I think there's only a couple supers, level 3s in the game that even do different damage. They almost all do the same damage, right? I think. Isn't that true? I'd have to go look at I haven't looked at Street Fighter 6 in a while, but I think Street Fighter 6, almost all supers even do the same damage besides a couple, right? When you're looking at the level 3, right? They're just combo fodder. It's not like when you look at an old school game in a super and you're like, oh, this super is a unique situation. Now most supers are like, oh, that's my combo ender. That's my combo ender. With rare exceptions that you see people, oh, I guess there's a JP super or a Blanca super, or you're like a Guile super, but those are rare. And so then what happens is the only mind game that you actually get of a game like Street Fighter 6 that is actually progressive, you might think is, well, if you get this green bar, we'll make it green, right? And you only got one little green bar here, and you're afraid about that you're going to be grayed out. And then in that situation, you might be like, well, I do have a level 1, so I could waste the level 1 for the reversal because I don't want to use the EX meter to be grayed out. That is actually like the best thing about Street Fighter 6. And that's the one thing that you're like, wow, that's like a different sort of mind game. Because the gray thing, and then how then you can use this meter to dizzy the guy, that's actually a new take on fighting games. And that's like an interesting perspective. But generally speaking, Street Fighter 6 is just complete trash. But when this happens, that's an interesting perspective that Street Fighter 6 can give you. But otherwise, the game is just, complete trash, which is, unfortunate. But anyway, EX moves suck. The only things that EX moves do is, like I said, that objectively is that every game needs to be different. And from that standpoint, if you have a one-off of a game, and you're like, okay, here's a game with EX moves, and there's, I guess you could say, depending on how much weight you put into that conversation, that you're like, okay, there's a little bit of meter management here, right? But otherwise, they're terrible. It homogenizes games. It makes characters less unique. Too often, these properties of the moves, you have to use the meter to even get the original properties. Too often, because all special moves are working together with EX moves, they're just too versatile. There's too many different situations where you could use them, right? And then you just got your supers like, well, that's my super, so that takes the full bar. So why wouldn't I just use my little baby parts of the meter, right? It's just hard for supers to be that strong to outweigh having such freedom of your meter before that, right? Anyway. EX moves suck. And to answer the guy's question that asked me about Alpha 1 specifically, if I think that Alpha 1 of custom combos should have been in a game like, when he was asking me about alpha counters in Alpha 1, if I think that supers should be different from alpha counters in a meter, I would say no, because again, Alpha 1 is a game that is archaic, and not every character, if you look at a game like, say, let's say Alpha 2, where every character has like 2 alpha counters, right? Like even look at a game like Alpha 1. Say Akuma is doing his sweep. Oh God, look at that. He's also flexing. He's flexing and he's doing his alpha counter. Guess what? An alpha counter like that from many situations is going to be a very powerful alpha counter, because guess what? It's not like he's doing a dragon punch and flying up in the air. Sure you could, whatever, right? You know what I mean? Now he's actually safe. But what about in the very random situations where, let's say Ryu does a super hurricane kick, 13 hits of block damage, right? This creates a specific character dynamic in this matchup specifically, where if Akuma actually didn't like check you, whatever you want to call it, or did whatever, stopped you before you did the super hurricane kick, now I got to take 13 hits of block damage. This is a situation where actually I wish if I didn't stop him before he did the hurricane kick and I have another character that has a better alpha counter for that situation, right? That makes Akuma weak. Although Akuma's alpha counter is strong in almost every other situation, he does come up for certain situations where the alpha counter might be weak. This makes the game not homogenized, right? But in a game like Alpha 2, where you give every character 2 alpha counters, inevitably, inherently, whatever you want to call it, right? Your character will always have a best alpha counter to do in a situation. You don't have these situations where your character is screwed. Quotation marks, I should say, right? Obviously, you could still be screwed, right? But, when you give characters too many options, it homogenizes things. Characters are supposed to have specific strengths and weaknesses. And a game like Alpha 1, there's no point of if you had like an alpha or an alpha counter bar or something like that. That wouldn't make sense because your characters are already, not homogenized in the first place. It's not like you have custom combos where the meter is, it can be used for anything, blah, blah, blah. Right. So, alpha counters. I'm getting confused with all these fucking names. Talking about too many different games at once. So no, I don't think there's a problem of alpha counters and supers in Alpha 1 because again, Alpha 1 is a ghetto ugly game, but Alpha 1 is somehow better designed than Alpha 2. And Alpha 2 again is, I've said so many times, one of them, just an absolutely terrible game. But anyway, if you like the videos, like, sub, comment, share, support the channel if you want to. Appreciate it. Thanks. The end.